Welcome to Business 12 for the fall semester 2019. I am Richard Okamoto, your instructor for the course. This opening session will introduce you to personal financial planning by providing an overview of its core elements. We will then introduce the concept of personal budgeting. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, we will first ask, what is personal financial planning? Then we'll ask, what is personal budgeting? This will be followed by discussing what budget questions should be addressed before we start the budgeting process itself. We'll also then look at a budget template, and after we study the budget template, then we'll take the moment to go through and take a look at the budgeting process step by step. All right, so what is personal financial planning? Clear guidelines as to what is included, who can help us, and what does it matter will be discussed throughout this course. As you can see from this slide, personal financial planning encompasses many different aspects of finance, some of which include such things as who will you work with, lawyers, CPAs, enrolled agents, real estate people, insurance people. We'll also be looking at the actual elements, and we're going to talk about that in an upcoming slide, specifically looking at such things as insurance, as tax planning, as investing. And so with that, let's move forward and take a look at what are those core elements. How do you unravel all of this mess we call personal financial planning? All right, well, I know financial planning looks a little bit overwhelming after looking at this slide, but let's step back from all this noise and what's surrounding personal financial planning, and let's identify its core elements. The first 6 items focus on the different areas involved with the process. Number 1, budgeting. Then investing. We look at number 3, and that is managing debt or credit. 4 is insurance. 5 is income taxes. And then retirement and estate planning. And number 7, which is overriding to everything, is you and your family. What do you need, want, and what do you care about? So let's take a dive into what is personal budgeting. What is it? Well, budgeting enables you to manage your money by understanding where it comes from, your income, and where it goes, your spending. It's all about cash flow. Money coming in, money going out. If you bring in more than you spend, well, you save money. You have more at the end of the day. If though you spend more than you bring in, you had to borrow that money, either from yourself by reducing your savings, or by borrowing from someone else, through credit cards or through loans. But borrowing implies you're going to pay it back in the future. And we'll talk more about this when we address debt management and the implications what that has for your future. All right, so let's start this process. Let's start the process of budgeting our money. So we need answers to 2 basic questions. What are our financial goals? Why do we need this money besides covering our current living expenses? And what is our current financial situation? So for example, what are your financial goals? Is it to go to college? You need to save more money so you can pay for college. Is it to buy a car? Is it to have kids, get married? Or is it to buy a home? Understanding what your financial goals are will help you understand how much money you need to save and how much money you need to accumulate to achieve those financial goals. With regards to the second question, what is your current financial situation? We need to understand, do you have a job? Or will you have a job? Or will you get an increase? And what are your current spending patterns? And what may be your future spending patterns? So these 2 questions have to be answered before you can start the budgeting process. What are your financial goals? And what is your current financial situation? Well, now that you've answered those 2 basic questions, we should take a look at a budget template. What does a budget actually look like? And we must understand and become familiar with it so we can work with it. It's like any other tool. You have to get good at it. the tool in itself is not going to help us. So let's look at this budget template. There's 4 core groups or elements or sections to a budget. The first is income, what cash is coming in. The second major group or section is fixed expenses, spending what we have to do each month, like on our mortgage, our car payments, rent, or utilities. The third category or component of a budget is our variable expenses. These include, you notice I have a little arrow going up, payments on debt, car loans, credit cards. These are all the variable expenses. And we'll see later on when we talk about managing our budget why this area is so important. And then the fourth area is the surplus or deficit. Essentially, how much is left over? If you have money left over, it's a surplus. Shake your hand because you saved money. If you have a negative number, such in this case, it's a deficit. So you had to go borrow that money from someplace to cover all your spending, whether it be your savings or borrow on a credit card. So this is the budget template. It's important for us to get comfortable with it because we'll be using it a lot as we manage our money. All right, we've had the chance to answer our questions for our budgeting. Those questions being, what are our financial goals and what is our current financial situation? Now that we have an understanding of that, and we've also now had the opportunity to become familiar with the budget template, and those 4 sections include income, where's your money coming from, and where you're spending your money, specifically in the area of fixed expenses and variable expenses, and then understanding what's left over. So as you can see, a budget is nothing more than our cash flow, cash coming in, cash going out. And then what's ever left over becomes our surplus, our savings, or a deficit, what we have to borrow. So now let's look at the process. How do you actually budget? And this next slide starts with, guess right, a goal. So you start with a goal. You have to have a financial number in mind. Let's say, for example, you want to go to college. And so you're looking at my financial goal, your financial goal is, I need to save $10,000 for that first year of college. Or I need to save $20,000 for my next 2 years of college. Or, for example, I want to buy that car, so I need to save $5,000 for a down payment. Now you have a tangible goal. That helps drive your spending. And with that then, it gives you a timeline, how long it will take for you to achieve that goal. That's really important. The timeline and the actual amount that you need to achieve that goal. Well, now that you have that goal, what do? Well, you got to go build your plan. And if you remember or recall from the budget template, what you then will put in there is, well, how much money am I going to earn over that each month for the next 12 months? And then once you figure out how much money that you're going to make, you go in and you start figuring out how much you're going to spend each month by category. It's really important that you categorize your spending, because if you don't categorize your spending, how do you know where you're spending your money? That's one of the most important elements of a budget. It shows you where you're spending that money. All right, so now you start with a goal, you're building your plan, you've been now categorizing your spending, and now what you have to do is you track your spending. You want to see how you're really doing against it. And ironically, in this planning process and tracking, what you want to do for the savings goal is you want to pay yourself first. Treat that savings amount like a spending category in your budget. So pay yourself first, and then build your budget around there. One thing I do want to mention, though, is that budgeting is difficult because things pop up, no question. So you want to be flexible. One of the traits that we'll talk about with regards to budget management will be spending trade-offs in real time. We'll talk more about that in detail when we get into the area of budget management. By the way, there's a lot of free tools out there and assistance that you can get on the web. And when we get into actually managing your budget, we'll go through and show you some of the free tools that are available to you. And now that you've done this work and you're built your budget and you're tracking your spending, what you should be doing over time is going through trial and error, seeing how you can improve this budget. Once you see what you're actually spending against what you thought you were spending, and you're going to get better at it. That's the whole idea of trial and error. You're going to get better at it, you're going to forecast it, then you're going to see how you're doing in real life, and what you'll find is after a while, you're getting a really good feel for your budget number. And that's what's important, and that's what allows you to manage it. Well, I hope this opening session gave you a little bit of a landscape of what we'll be dealing with here in personal financial planning. We wanted to give you a little bit of insight into personal budgeting, and what we'll be doing in Business 12, we'll be going into a much deeper dive into all those areas that we talked about that are part of personal financial planning. Thank you.